should have forgot that was Saturday.
I'll draw attention to it when we open the meeting, just in case.
Okay. And they can't, her flight back is over Russia.
Jessica, do you have a?
Oh, so is it or is it in credit? And if they put it in credit, they put weird blackout.
Never have.
Yeah, you wanna sign that.
What? How did we just notice this? Wow.
Everyone,
Never have.
everyone already knows you.
Everybody knows. So. All right, it being 5 p.m., I will call to order this meeting of the Hillsdale Community Library Board of Trustees. All members are present, along with our director. We will begin by addressing the approval of the agenda for the evening. Do any members of the board have any changes they wish to make to the agenda? All right, seeing none, I will lead with the motion that we strike item 14, future business, from the agenda for this meeting and for meetings going forward. I'll get into my justification for that, but for the sake of holding discussion after there is a second to the motion, I'll first see, do I have a second to discuss this motion?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. For discussion, I would just like to say that I'm proposing this just because, for one thing, the only thing remaining under future business is the ongoing review of the policy manual. And as that is simply one of the standard duties of the board, and as leaving this item on the agenda doesn't really provide us with any action, it's very open-ended, it's very vague, I just don't see that it's profitable to continue to have it on the agenda unless there's a very strong argument that it should be. Future business is not one of the standard items listed in our bylaws as being an agenda item, nor am I aware of it being standard for agendas of this kind. So that's my justification for making this motion. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I've never seen it.
Wait to be recognized by the chair. Yes, Trustee Palladino.
Yep, I've never seen it anywhere else, and usually if you want to bring up future business at council, for example, you'll say something at board comment. I would like to have this added to the agenda for the next meeting. Any other discussion? Yes, Trustee Stockford.
So it's been on the agenda as long as I've been on the board. Was there some sort of precedence as to when it was set? Like, was there a reason why it was put onto the agenda initially?
I'll reply to that and then open it up to anyone else. All I will say is, I recall that it's been there for ages. I don't recall off the top of my head when it was first put there or what the justification was. I would have to go back through the minutes and find out when this was first added, this future business thing was first added to the agenda. I don't actually remember, nor do I recall the justification. I do recall, obviously, for example, the election of officers was put under future business because it was deliberately postponed at the last annual meeting. But I don't recall why the review of the policy manual was put under future business, nor what the justification for that was.
Oh, I
Yes,
was
Trustee
meaning just
Stockford.
the future business
As
line
a
item
thing.
as itself.
Right.
Because I do remember when we put the board policy on, that was actually shortly after I joined the board. And I think it was just an average reminder that we were working on it. You know, Karen and I had done some light work on policy, things
Yeah.
like that, right towards the beginning. But I'm meaning like overall as a line item.
I do not actually recall the justification for creating a separate item just for future business, I'm afraid. And is there any other input, any other recollection, Trustee Palladino?
In a way, I'll just add that old business is sort of what future business, like if something comes up but you haven't made a decision on it, it goes into old business and you revisit it over and over. So in a way, that's sort of the placeholder line item that I think it's serving as.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote on this motion. All those in favor of striking the item, future business from this and future agendas, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving.
Was that 5 ayes or? Okay, just checking.
As a point of order, may I ask, I won't make a motion, I'll just ask, would everyone be all right for votes, for a show of hands on votes, just so it's easier for the secretary to tell who's voting? Good, all right, I think let's do that going forward, thank you. Next is item 4. Yes, Jessica?
Did we approve the agenda?
Yes. We approved the amendment to the agenda. We did not approve the agenda itself. Thank you. All right, we approved that amendment to the agenda. I will now ask for a motion to approve the agenda as a whole with that amendment.
So,
Okay,
I'll second.
second. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will ask for a show of hands. All those in favor of approving the agenda as a whole with the suggested amendment?
Aye.
Thank you. The agenda is approved. Moving on to item 4, approval of the minutes of the meeting of July 13th, 2023. I think we've got an extra 2 in the agenda here. It appears to be 20,223, so something to fix when we post this. July 13th, 2023. First of all, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the July 13th meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Do we ask for any corrections first?
I think we could, well, I've already asked for the motion to approve, somebody could second, then in discussion we could propose amendments. That's probably kosher. Okay, second. All right, any discussion of the minutes as presented?
I believe that the
Trustee
minutes
Hill.
that Josh first presented were correct, and I abstained from the vote for president as well as vice president and secretary, and I think in his revision, he said that I voted for it, but I abstained, and I think that if you watch Penny's video, you'll see that I abstained, I did not vote. I could not feel supportive of you, George, voting for president, when you did not support our director, and our trustee manual specifically says that the board members will support our director, and I didn't feel that was the case, and several things that have happened in the past, including the threat that occurred with her, so I know that for a fact, I did not vote for you. But that you would still pass as president.
Thank you. Trustee Palladino.
After I revised again, sent you a new one. It might have been after the minutes were posted for the meeting. But the final version I sent you should have that correction, so I think that would solve it.
Director.
I did pull the minutes, right before I sent out the board packet. So if you did make future corrections, I was not notified of that to note and pull them.
So we've heard discussion. Trustee Hill, are you making a motion that the minutes be amended to reflect the fact that you abstained from voting for all officers?
That's correct.
I have a paper copy of Josh's amended minutes. Could we vote to approve them as he sent them out?
I think for clarity, since the minutes we are currently looking at, in which the vote for president in the minutes we are currently looking at, and which were posted, reads that it was 5-0. I think for clarity, we should say we will approve the minutes as presented with the understanding that they will be amended to reflect that Trustee Hill abstained from voting for any officers. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
I hear a motion from Trustee Hill. Do I hear a second?
second.
Motion to approve with amendment is what we're.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is within our motion to approve the minutes.
I'm beginning to realize why we should have simply set this separately. All right, so we are currently in discussion to approve the minutes as presented.
Right.
I think the easiest thing would be to vote against approving the minutes as presented, present the motion to make the amendment, and then we can
Yes.
vote to approve that motion. So, is there any further discussion to approve the minutes as presented? Seeing none, are there any in favor of voting to approve the minutes as presented? All opposed? Good. Trustee Hill, forgive me, do you wish to make that, we should go through the correct process. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented with the correction that Trustee Hill did not vote for any officers? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none? Stephanie was the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Show of hands. Thank you. None opposed? The approval of the minutes passes with the noted correction. Thank you. Next on the agenda, visitor comments. Welcome to all our visitors. Reminder to please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to make your statements. I will keep time. And just as a recollection, this is not a discussion with the board, so the board will not be answering questions during public comment. Thank you. Would anyone like to rise to make public comment at this time? Going once? Twice? Thank you.
Ted Jansen, Hillsdale Street. I had sent to the board a copy of the court decision from your district court, Western District of Texas, Austin, and you're aware of what I'm going to talk about. This dealt with curating books, that some folks thought that such the Barton and Park books were obscene and promoted grooming behavior. The books labeled pornographic included books promoting acceptance of LGBTQ views. The other pornographic books were critical race theory and related racial themes, and they wanted those to be relocated to the adult section. This is part of the 26-page opinion. The Supreme Court has recognized that public libraries should be afforded broad discretion in their collection selection process, which library staff must necessarily consider books' content. It further goes that adopting Supreme Court's plurality in PICO has recognized a First Amendment right to receive information which prevents libraries from removing books from school libraries, that's the PICO, shelves, simply because they dislike the ideas contained in these books. The right to access information first identified in PICO and subsequently adopted by the Fifth Circuit in Campbell has even greater force when applied to public libraries, since public libraries are designed for freewheeling inquiry. The court follows our sister courts in holding that there is a protected liberty interest in access to information in the public library. I will repeat, a protected liberty interest in access to information in the public library. First Amendment prohibits the removal of books from libraries based upon either viewpoint or content discrimination. Official censorship based on a state actor's subjective judgment that the content of protected speech is offensive or inappropriate is viewpoint discrimination. Content-based restrictions on speech are presumptively unconstitutional and subject to strict scrutiny. Reed versus Town of Gilbert, U.S. versus Playboy and Prices. A restriction is content-based if it applies to particular speech because the topic discussed or the idea or message expressed. The decision to remove books must withstand greater scrutiny within the context of the First Amendment than would a decision involving a circular manner, school books. Conversely, when the government's substantial motivation appears to be the desire to prevent access to particular views, as in this case, CRT, LGBTQ.
That's time, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I'll speak.
Thank you, sir.
Bruce Sharp, City Councilman. It's plain and simple as this. I know what you guys' agendas down the road is to remove books from the library that you feel, conservative people feel are not proper. That is a invasion of the First Amendment rights when you do that. Hillsdale College is a big, strong supporter of the Second Amendment rights. They have a shooting range out there. I visited yesterday, nice shooting range. But when you start interfering with my First Amendment rights to say, this book doesn't belong in this library or that is an invasion. The Attorney General is anxious to wait for this to happen. Don't do it. Don't play that game, because you're playing Russian roulette. Don't create a lawsuit that the taxpayers of this town will have to pay for to cover it. There will be a lawsuit if you remove books from this library. It's the parents' choice to raise their kids to what is right and what is wrong. It is not the librarian's job to babysit people. It's not the staff's job here to babysit people. This is a public library. It's a community library. What you guys are trying to do here is disgraceful, and it's not fooling anybody. We're watching. I love Hillsdale College. I had a son who graduated from there, but I'm disgusted with what's going on recently. That's all I've got to say. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, you too. Is there any other visitor comment?
I yield my 3 minutes to Ted to finish up what he has to say.
Someone can only
Okay,
speak once,
I'll
I'm
read
sorry.
his stuff.
You may certainly do so.
People are allowed to do that at council.
Here's what you can do for.
Conversely, when government's substantial motivation appears to be a desire to prevent access to particular views, like in this case, defendant's action deserves greater First Amendment scrutiny. The court finds that plaintiffs made a clear showing that the substantial motivation for defendant's actions appears to be discrimination, as opposed to mere weeding. Under the strict scrutiny analysis, the defendants bear the burden of providing that the removal are narrowly tailored to serve a compelling interest. Back here. In book removal cases, the key inquiry is the library official's substantial motivation in arriving at the removal decisions. Campbell 64 F3D at 190. Although some of the must-see criteria considered content, overall the library reading process appears to be directly towards managing the size and quality of library collections. It'd be nice if you would let him do this, because he knows more what's going on. The guide, I guess this is the mustie, M-U-S-T-I-E. M, misleading, factually inaccurate. U, ugly, worn beyond mending or rebinding. S, superseded by the new edition or by the much better book on the subject. T, trivial or non-discernible, literally or scientific merit. I, irrelevant to the needs and interests of the library's community. E, elsewhere, the material is easily obtained from another library. That's what that must-be stands for. Must-be criteria for reading. And I agree with everything that Mr. Councilman Sharp said. The world is watching, and the legal action is imminent if you start taking books out.
Thank you. Is there any other visitor comment? Thank you.
Hello,
Your name?
My name is Dr. Carmen Wyatt Hayes. I am Professor Emerita of Spanish from Hillsdale College. And I am here because my field is medieval and Golden Age Spanish literature. And I want to issue a word of warning, since this is my field. Do not ban books. Do not ban books. This is a public library. I am Catholic. There are aspects of me that are conservative. There are aspects of me that are liberal. But what I can say with my professional expertise is that banning books never works. Parents need to be in control of what their children read or do not read. They must make these decisions. I would come with my son every library visit, and we would look at what he would select together. That is how it must be. The parents must decide, not anyone else. But again, from my professional expertise, do not do this. Do not widen the gulf between the college and the community. I am a member of this community. I also love the college, and I see danger. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffman. Is there any other visitor comment?
So my comment is a little bit different. So, Ms. Hill, I was gonna send you a private message, and I thought to myself as I wrote that out, that this needed to be more of a public comment. I'm glad Connie's here to record this, because she'll have this posted so others can see. I want to personally thank you for your grace, your sense of being just through this last year. You have been put through hell and back, and the way in which you have handled that is phenomenal. Young girls, young women, old women like myself, can learn things from you, right? So I hope that you know there's a large body of this community that understands what you have been through. They have watched this transpire, and at each step of that torment that you endured, that trauma that was put on you, you had grace. You had all of the elements of what we would hope to emanate in others. So I need you to know publicly that we appreciate you being fair and just and following library bylaws and doing all those things. And I don't say that from a side of an issue either way. You have personally told me to sit down in library meetings or turn around and do my business with the board. So I am so appreciative that you took this just stance and you did what was right and what was forthcoming in each step of this trauma that you were put through. I'm sorry. The people that should tell you they're sorry will not ever. I personally am sorry that you had to endure that we watched you have to endure that. You made us better people because of that. And I don't know what that was. At any rate, thank you for the human that you are. Thank you for your sense of just. Thank you for what you're doing with the library as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other visitor comment? Please. Your name?
Samantha Feather. I just want to say that I own a small business right here in downtown Hillsdale, right on Howell Street. A big corner of my store is devoted to LGBTQ+ merchandise, and I just want to let everybody know that almost on the daily we do get people in there that thank us for showing support for the Pride community. You'll notice I have flags in my window, and just offering support in general. So I do just want to let everybody know that there is a need for support in this community, for the LGBTQ+, and it's not just us, I don't know, people like thinking we are pushing this upon our children. That's not just the case. The library provides resources for children to learn about their parents and their uncle. So we're not just banning books so that kids can't be termed. We're banning books and allowing them to not be able to connect with their families. Hillsdale does need these resources, and the library is a great place to start, and parents, just like everybody has said, parents are the ones who should be limiting what the kids read, so not the library.
Thank you. Is there any other visitor comment? Going once, please?
I would have thought it would have been nice if the new member was mentioned to the people of the community, which hasn't been done as far as I know. Greeted or whatever you want to say it, and maybe say something about themselves, like where they've spent the last 10 years, or if they're gay, or if they're a pedophile, or whatever they are. I just think it'd be nice if they spoke and said something about themselves. Thank you.
Any other visitor comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 6, the 2022-23 year-end expense and revenue report. Thank you. Director, do you want to introduce the report, please?
Yeah, yes, you do.
I have no comments. I did have a few questions. Is there anything in particular you would like to highlight?
For state grant, just want to point out, after I had printed this off, our year end was supposed to be 4 amendments August 1st. However, there was extra stuff that came in after August 1st. So we have, under state grant, $5,895.30 that came in for state aid. I'd also like to highlight. I'm sorry,
That's revenue.
yes,
Yes, state grant under revenues.
$29,990.74 came in under penal fines. And under expenditures, we paid for the carpet cleaning services, which we did not see last month when I presented the year end. And then net of revenues and expenditures, we ended the year in the positive $79,068.86. You said you had questions?
Yes, forgive me, I'm looking at the 22-23 report as linked in our agenda. The net of revenues and expenditures figure I'm looking at, I might not be looking at the right document, was 73,529?
As I mentioned, there was an update.
Oh, I see. So that update, that wasn't included in this document, which is one year.
I
Got it.
pulled this morning
Just
and
this morning.
compared
Forgive me, thank you.
and saw that more things had come in.
Great, beautiful. I did notice that at year end, we had a few extraordinary items in terms of income, the state grant, contributions in lieu of tax, lease financing, other revenue. And I would say we are certainly looking very well in terms of our net of revenues and expenditures. Did you want to briefly state for the record what each of these items were? For example, contributions in lieu of tax.
We've hashed through this a couple of times, George. I'm happy to send another email
Sure.
with this in it so that we don't take up more time than necessary.
I appreciate that, sure.
I'll just forward the same email that I sent you before.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions regarding the 22-23 year-end expense and revenue report? No? Going once, going twice? No. Moving on, item 7, expense and revenue report for this month. Does anybody have questions on this item for the director? No? Director, is there anything you'd like to draw attention to? Excellent.
I'd like to point out under other revenue woodlands, we received $2,000 as part of our innovation grant. And then we also received other monies from them, which is part of their benefits to us. They pay us back for continuing education, MLA memberships, tons of other stuff too. So 2,000 of that was for the innovation grant. The 3 tables that you're sitting at right now were part of the purchases with the innovation grant. So you will see those come out when we look at, in September, at our expenditures this month. Under expenditures, contractual services, just want to point out the $2,017.45 that's there. 400 was for our time-it system, which allows us to print and allows patrons to get on our computers. $720 was for our Johnson Controls annual fee to them to service us. $897.45 were for our fire inspection. $300 was for our sprinkler inspection. $170 was for our website, and $237 is for overdrive. And then under technical services, 560 of it came out for our watch guard for this year. That is all I would like to point out, unless anybody else has any questions.
Trustee Palladino?
I don't see the old money on here. How is that reflected? Do you have any plans for it? The
Like,
carryover?
oh, it goes in our general fund. It works just like the city's general fund works.
Okay, so you have total freedom with that?
No.
No.
No. The board can do as they wish with
Right.
it, but that's why we make a budget and we prepare a budget and we follow a budget. And so the extra money is there if unforeseen circumstances happen, capital outlay projects. Let's say a tornado comes through and demolishes the building, yes, we get insurance money, but we still have a deductible. Insurance might not cover all of it, and so we have that general fund cushion there.
Do you know how much is in that? Is it more than just last year?
I would guess roughly 300,000, and that is a rough guess. In years prior, we have not saved the kind of money that I have saved here. In prior years, sometimes we were in the negative. So I would like to say how huge of a deal it is that we saved nearly $80,000 last year out of a $236,000 budget.
Absolutely.
It seems great to have 300,000, but I wonder if we can talk with you, with the finance people, and say, how much really should we have in reserve versus how much we could invest in?
That's a great question
Children's
for
library
Kate
and-
when Kate was here. Ideally, there should be enough to keep us covered for a few months, maybe not as much as we have in there now. But maybe there's something that we could look at and fit into the budget for the next fiscal year planning, to do a capital project.
Okay, so we can't infuse it in with the budget as currently written.
No, the budget's already been written and approved.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions? Trustee Stomper?
The grant that we wrote on recently, when are we supposed to hear back about that?
Was it the LSTA
I
grant?
believe so.
That is in September.
Okay.
Yeah, middle of September, so you'll probably hear in October.
Thank you.
And I know that, I know we just had carpeting cleaned, but that's also an item we're looking long range at. Eventually, all the carpeting in the building will have to be like, so we do need to keep a cushion of cash there.
Yeah.
And like you said, major repairs, there are some things that will need attention in the year
Or
or two.
even resurfacing parking lots, that is a substantial amount right there, or if the sidewalks need repairs.
Any other questions for the director? No? Thank you. Moving on to the circulation report. Director, anything you'd like to highlight?
Looking into the last fiscal year, since July is the first month in the 23-24 fiscal year, our circ numbers were right in line, with where we have been, especially for summer. Compared to July of 22, down a little bit from July of 22, but right in line with where we were seeing it, throughout 2023. Would like to point out that our reference questions and our Facebook outreaches went down a little bit. I'm suspecting that was summer readings over, so we weren't getting asked a lot of questions at the front desk about summer reading. And then Facebook went down a little bit. A lot of people were getting their information about summer reading events from Facebook. And then also would like to point out under other donation, we had $200 donated to the library. So. Any questions?
No? Excellent. Thank you. Next, item 9, the director's report, starting with program stats. Director?
Our Lego club, you'll see June of 23 was pretty high just because we continue doing it throughout summer reading. So July, we're seeing our numbers come right back down in line with where we were pre-summer reading. Sit and stitch numbers went down a little bit. A lot of people had vacations or were busy and weren't able to make it throughout the month of July. Little bookworms started back up. So we will be seeing those numbers next month when we look at August. And then coffee and conversation, Stephanie and I had in July, we had 4 people attend that. And then would also like to highlight that we had 275 kids sign up for summer reading and 64 completed and turned in their logs. And for adults, we had 100 adults sign up and 55 logs completed. Yeah, we had 275 sign up for kids, 64 logs completed for children, and then adults were 100 signed up and 55 completed. Yeah, 55 logs were turned in.
Jessica, how did those compare to previous years? Last year was a little.
They're comparable to pre-COVID numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other questions for the director? No? Seeing none, we'll move on to item B here, fire alarm inspection from Johnson Controls.
So the only deficiency in the fire alarm inspection were the batteries in the lobby and the front panel. Johnson Controls quoted us over $1,000 to replace them. IT replaced them for $80. So saved us a ton of money there too. Yeah. So that's the only thing I had to note for the fire alarm inspection. Any questions?
So that's already been fixed?
Yep, sure has.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no questions, moving on to the sprinkler inspection from Premier Fire Protection.
So this is the first year that Premier Fire Protection did our sprinkler inspections. Previously, it was Johnson Controls. There are a couple of deficiencies, a few deficiencies noted on here. One of the biggest ones that's on here is the sample testing. proof of sprinkler sample testing. I could not find through the records from Johnson Controls where that's been done. It's supposed to be tested within the last 10 years, or if your sprinkler's over 20 years old, then it needs replaced. I am still waiting to hear back from Johnson Controls to see if they did the sprinkler sample testing, or if they've been replaced, because now we've been in the building for 20 years, it's likely 20 years old. So if it was replaced, it should have been in the last couple of years, because it took a few years to do renovations here. So I'm waiting to hear back from them to see if we need to do a sample, how old it is, to see if they need replaced. I also asked them a quote to fix all of the deficiencies and then break it down by item, by deficiency, in case the sprinkler sample testing doesn't need to be done, and then how much are we looking at. So they just responded to me today. I can bring it to board next month, once I confirm with Johnson Controls about that sprinkler sample testing or replacement. So just waiting on them.
Question, and
Yes.
the quote was from Verifier.
Yes. Mm-hmm. To correct the deficiencies noted, yes.
May I ask, do you think it urgent that we address this item prior to our next regular meeting?
Nothing noted in here is an urgent
Okay.
matter.
Okay, good. Any questions regarding this item? Seeing none, let's move on to D.
So Heidi, our program coordinator, attended the July play event, which the Great Start Collaborative put on. Heidi read The Pigeon Needs a Bath, and she also led a Fishing for Letters activity. The book was chosen by the Great Start Collaborative. The activities were chosen by the Great Start Collaborative. Heidi just showed up, interacted with them, had fun with the kids. They had 24 families attend, including 56 kids. Many of the families that were there are also ones that attend our library here, so lots of familiar faces there, and they were very happy to see Heidi.
Right. Any questions regarding that? Seeing none. All right, we'll move on to number 10, communication. The only thing we have is our guest speaker from our Friends of the Library group, so please go ahead.
Hi, Brianna Kroll, President of the Friends of the Library. And Laura, I can actually, if you give me your email, I can like do a bulletin point for you if you didn't want to take notes. So we're just continuing trying to get the free money through Kroger, signing up through Kroger, which we have things printed out. We've been sharing it on social media. Our next fundraiser is going to be canvas bag designs, so that when people come in and check out books, and they can grab like a reusable canvas. We'll bulk order the first one, and then we discuss that perhaps at next year's summer reading, we could have the kids do an activity where they design the next, where the kids have a competition to design the next canvas bag. We'll be doing our fall t-shirt order, so this month's meeting we'll be also discussing, everybody was supposed to bring 1 or 2 designs that they liked, and then go from there, and then have the voting on Facebook again. We started our August read alouds, which is only going through August because a lot of us are teachers, and we're like, you get August. Well, we were gonna do it before, but they were like, we have summer reading programs, so they're like, we'll do it, take it when it's done, and we're like, well, then we have no time. So we had about 20 people come. We read aloud 2 read alouds. We used something called Novel Effect, which is a great interactive program which actually tunes in with your voice and then plays sound effects that goes with the book. And then we did 2 crafts to accompany it, and while we were there, we signed up 2 children for their brand new first library card. And so we talked about this before. At the next meeting, we're gonna be discussing possibly purchasing if you haven't seen it, it's like a My First Library card, like sign that they get their picture taken with. So when a child comes in, because it's like such a big deal to get your first library card, and then obviously with the parents' permission, then getting posted on the social media. So that's where we're going right now. Does anybody have any questions?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for all your
You're welcome.
efforts.
Yes?
That reminds me of the Keep the Library.
Yes, I love to keep the library, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is nothing under item 11, old business. So we will move on to 12, new business. First thing, item A, approval of our Woodlands membership contract. I assume everybody has had time to review the contract. Are there any questions or discussion? Yes, Trustee Palladino.
Jessica, is there any way to know the cost beforehand, or it's just calculated based on things that come in later under D?
So, yes and no. State aid is a pool of money that's divided up per capita, based on total population. Our population is the city of Hillsdale, Jefferson Township, and Hillsdale Township. We have a rough estimate of how much we should be receiving with state aid, but there's not, it's later determined depending on how many libraries there are, broken down by population and that sort of thing. So we budgeted, Talia, for state aid to receive about 10,000 in the 23-24 fiscal year, so.
And just to let you,
Trustee Hill, thank you.
just as when I attended the Women's Cooperative Governing Board meeting, sorry for my voice, they're a pretty bare bones operation. Kate and Laura, they do not have office space. They go to their homes. There's some mileage going to visit different libraries and things that they attend. You know, probably the biggest cost is the services of Mel and the lending libraries. And whatever money they have left from their budget, they get back to the libraries, which is where the $2,000 came from this
And like
time.
hoopla.
Or they'll do an extra IT grant or, extra coverage for us to help with marketing for whatever, you know, the director wishes. So they're a pretty economical source for a lot of benefits that we get from them.
Thank you. Any other discussion of this item? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve our signature of the Woodlands membership contract for this year. Do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimously, the motion passes. Jessica, how should that be signed and passed along?
I can
Do you,
sign it.
do you sign it as the representative and pass it along to Woodlands? Excellent. All right. Item B under new business, a discussion of bylaws revisions. This is something I initiated. I contacted all of our members prior to the meeting to ask that we add this agenda item. All I said is I'd like to undertake a little research and propose some revisions to our bylaws. I believe the document could benefit from some more legible and attractive formatting. In its current form, it's obviously an old scan of a document that's been around a while. I think we could make it a little more legible. I also think we could use a little more detail in articulating the authority and duties of the board as a whole, the duties of individual members, and in particular the officers, the duties of the director as administrative officer of the board, and some other matters that I've noticed are standard in other bylaws and are recommended by the public trustee manual. I'm not proposing any revisions right now. I'm just bringing it before the board that I intend to undertake this research project, and that I'm proposing to bring a draft of these revisions to our next meeting. Once I've done a little digging and writing myself, I'm going to share things with the director, with the secretary, and with the city attorney for their input to make sure everything looks kosher. it's within the authority of the president to appoint the committees to undertake such things, but I will ask for a motion. I will put forth the motion that I be authorized to undertake this project and to propose revisions to our bylaws at our next meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Are you gonna be a committee of, are you appointing?
I'm suggesting that myself, the secretary, and the director, or if we're speaking just to the board members, myself and the secretary be the committee in question.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions or discussion? Director, thank you.
It was pointed out at the last board meeting that maybe the city attorney might not be the best person to review policies
Okay.
specific to libraries. And
Okay.
so I think personally, maybe before we undertake this, we should look into potentially acquiring a library attorney for ourselves who's versed in library law, who could assist us with this. I do have a list, if anyone would like it, of attorneys that practice library law in the state of Michigan. Another benefit of Woodlands is that they provide us $2,000 to share between continuing education, technology, and legal services. So we do have $2,000 available to us if we needed it and wanted to use it. Personally, I would recommend that we use a library-specific attorney. This wasn't something I was aware of before, and so before when I was rewriting policies, I did have our city attorney look at it. But if we could get ourselves in some legal trouble, it sounds like maybe we should take initiative and try to protect ourselves and make sure that we are doing what we should be doing. So I do have a list of library law attorneys in Michigan, but that's where I'll leave that.
Thank you. Trustee Palladino?
I think I would agree with that if we were gonna change policy at this point, but assuming you're gonna be ripping things from, other libraries that have been, vetted and approved, as well as, the trustee manual, I don't see this as that volatile of a situation, but definitely open to the suggestion.
Trustee Hill?
Oh, Hill. I would just say, agreeing with what Jessica said after hearing Claire's presentation about how library law is so much different than regular law practices, and to not go with the city attorney, and also at Woodlands cooperative meetings that I've been to, they have also stressed, because some libraries, such as ours, do have access to a city attorney. It's just easy to go to them at no additional cost. It's part of our whole city contract. And so we've used Mr. Lovinger in the past and his partner to look at things. I know one library commented that they were piggybacking off another library that they knew had library services to keep themselves from a legal fee. And they were warned, every library is so different between city libraries, district libraries, and different categories of libraries, that it's very specific. And you can get in a lot of trouble rewriting policies or provisions or even bylaws without the right input.
Any other discussion? Trustee Shaw?
Frankly, the elephant in the room is that for the last several months, we've been getting threatened with the idea that somebody is going to sue us at some point. Let's just be very clear. And if Woodlands has this money available to us to use, I don't see where it would hurt to have someone look it over. If it's not going to cost the library, in theory, if it's not going to cost the library any money, if it's not going to cost the city any money, because I do know that that would ultimately be a concern if it was going against city budget and we were hiring our own lawyer. But if Woodlands is going to give us the money to be able to do this, to keep ourselves as much out of hot water unnecessarily as we can, I think that's incredibly pertinent, because we've been getting threats, guys.
Any further discussion?
I believe Woodlands would be supporting us in as far as we found intellectual freedom, not if we went against it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we will move forward with a vote to create a committee consisting of the president and the secretary to consider revisions to our bylaws, understanding that this committee may also and would potentially prudently investigate the possibility of using available funds to consult specialized legal assistance when it comes to seeking a library law attorney. All those in favor of the motion, a show of hands. All those opposed? 3-2, the motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to item 13, board comments. I would just like to lead with a comment once again. It's been pointed out, I'll point it out again. I'll point it out every time I think about it, how incredible it is, how very deeply in the black this institution is, and how entirely to the credit of the current director, our very stable financial situation is, and the excellent administration of this institution. So thank you. Is there any other board comment? Trustee Taylor?
I would like to apologize to Laura Vegas because I omitted introducing you, as Jack said tonight, introducing you as our new board member and welcoming you in our last meeting, so I apologize for that oversight. We went to roll call and said we were all here and went on from there, so I apologize. I was glad Jack brought that up.
On that note, Laura, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you want to briefly introduce yourself so that we're actually kind of welcoming you to the
Okay, sure.
board?
My name is Laura Nikas. I live here in Hillsdale. I moved back here over a year ago. Previously, I had lived here for 3 years, based on some jobs with the college that my husband had a short contract, it expired. Anyways, we ended up coming back because we really love this community and the people in it. Previously, I worked as children's librarian here and really enjoyed that role so much. I actually worked with Jessica. She was a page while I was here, and that was a great working relationship. It's really nice to be working with Jessica again. So, yeah, I have, as noted in city council meetings, I have a background in library science. I have a master's degree. I enjoy the discipline, and I'm excited and happy to bring that expertise to being a trustee of this institution that I really enjoy and that I enjoyed working for, enjoy supporting. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and look forward to serving everyone to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. Any other board comments? Seeing none? And as future business has been struck from the agenda, our next meeting date will be September 14th, 2023 at 5 p.m. And Secretary, for the record, we are adjourned at 5:58 p.m. Thank you very much. Oh, motion to adjourn. Forgive me.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.